Hi, I'm Amy, and this is A-Star Reads, and I'm doing the spoiler tag today in my pajamas with my feet up on my couch, relaxed, because it's been a long week. So I was very kindly tagged to do this tag by Bethanne Bruninga-Socolar, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. If you've not checked out this channel, please do so, because I think Bethanne has incredible reviews. She does a very good job of giving a great description, but then also being very thoughtful in her reviews. She really thinks about the book she's reading, and her reviews reflect that. She does a lot of individual reviews, tags, wrap-ups, different types of TBRs, and one of the things I go to her channel for is the variety in the types of books she reads, because she's not necessarily reading books that I've heard of that are really popular on BookTube. And that's fantastic, because I like to hear about some of the older books that nobody really talks about, or some of the books that haven't been reviewed ad nauseum. And that's not to say that I don't like the popular books too, it's just that it's nice to get a bit of variety. She has a pretty varied taste, and I love that she does science nonfiction, because she works in science, and that's a subject that, needless to say, is near and dear to my heart. So if you haven't checked out her channel, please do so. I think Bethanne is great, and thank you for tagging me, Bethanne. So the spoiler tag was originally created by Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, and I will also put them down in the description box below, so you can check out their video. This is an interesting tag that I feel like I have opinions on, because I've always had a hard time with spoilers, although I know I've added spoilers to some of my videos, because I also know that other people feel differently about spoilers than I do. So let's just go through the questions. I'm going to be looking down quite a bit, because I am not hugely prepared today. I just wanted to talk with you. Sorry, this is Amy not being very prepared. Okay, question number 1. What do you consider a spoiler? I consider a spoiler anything that gives away a twist in a plot, a revelation, like something, if there's something revealed in the plot, any high emotion moment of a plot, like if something happens and you're like, oh, you're excited, or you're this or you're that. So anything that like is revealing, changes the storyline, anything that, you know, is surprising or causes high emotions in the person who's reading it, I feel like those are the moments that I would consider spoilers. I like synopses, but I want them to just tell me the general premise of the story, but not give away any of the secrets of the story, if you will. And you know, this really depends on the type of book you're reading. It's all like, spoilers really are dependent on the genre, which actually I think is question number 2. Does the genre you're reading impact what you consider a spoiler? Yes, obviously. Like I just said, I read a lot of nonfiction, and I tend to be a lot more detailed when it comes to describing a nonfiction book, because I don't really think there are spoilers in nonfiction books. Maybe in true crime. I didn't consider that, because I don't read a lot of true crime. Not that I don't want to, just that I haven't read a lot of true crime. But nonfiction books, a lot of the stories in those are known. The history is known. The end result is known. Like, you can't read a book about the Titanic and be surprised at what happens. And a lot of times in nonfiction books, even in the beginning when they're starting the story, you kind of already know what's going to happen in the long run. Or they even tell you, like in Deadwake by Eric Larson, you know that there's going to be a problem with the Lusitania. You know that it's not going to survive this journey. With nonfiction, there's a lot of times when spoilers aren't a thing for me. And that could be not true for other people, but most of the time you know what's going to happen in the story going into it. So another genre that I think spoilers are not always as big of a deal for me is like in romance books, because typically in true romances, there's a happy ending. Usually there's a happy ending. Things turn out in the end. You know that they're going to end up together. That's generally what happens. So like, you know, saying like, oh, you know they're going to end up together, it's happily ever after, like that's not a spoiler. Maybe some of the changes in the situations that happen during the story, you know, that lead up to this happy ending, those could be spoilers. But romances to me are not as spoiler heavy. I don't worry too much about spoilers when it comes to those. Mysteries, thrillers, horrors, fantasies, those are the ones that I feel have the biggest spoilers, and I don't want to know too much about those. I really don't want to know hardly anything about mysteries and thrillers. Fantasies, I tend to want to know a little bit more about what the whole premise is in the beginning, which is probably how I do a lot of my videos. I know that I give way too much detail about the beginning of fantasies, but that's just because there's so many details to fantasies. But then I don't really want to know about what's happening later on in the story, because I will find that out in the book. And that to me feels a little more spoiler heavy than what you learn about in the beginning, like during the world building part of fantasy books. So it really does depend on the genre, but nonfiction romance are the ones that I'm less concerned about spoilers in. Question number 3. Okay, I gotta read you this one because it's long. All the best bits are in the trailer. Sometimes the synopsis can be too detailed. Do you research books prior to reading them, or do you go in blind? It depends on the genre. I do a little bit of both. I really like to know the premise of a book before I go into it. Most of the time. I do pick up books that I don't know anything about, but I don't often do that. So I like to at least have an idea. And so I really like BookTube because I can look at people's reviews, not necessarily the spoilery part of reviews, but look at the synopses and their basic review and be able to tell, like, is this a book I actually want to read? But even then, sometimes I will go into a book thinking it's something based off of a review or a synopsis that I've read or heard, and it doesn't end up being anything like what I thought it was. So that's always a nice, pleasant surprise. I won't go into Goodreads and look at reviews, especially ones that have spoilers in them, until after I've read the book, unless I'm curious to see if it's a book that I will enjoy, or if maybe there are elements to it that will make me uncomfortable. But at the same time, I'm not one to just go into a bookstore and pick up a book off the shelf and not learn anything about it. Like, I'll usually whip out my phone and kind of look up reviews for it, or at least look up the information to see if it's something I might be interested in. So I guess that means I typically do look up the synopsis of a book. Okay, question number 4. This is also a long one. Sometimes the introduction or translator's notes can spoil the ending, especially for classics. Has this ever happened to you? Yes, of course. I can't think of specific situations, but there have definitely been classics in particular where I start reading the introduction, because I'm definitely the kind of person who wants to start something from the very beginning and go all the way through it. And the introductions are way too spoilery. And I'm like, why don't you just put it at the end? I don't understand that. I guess they're afraid people won't read it, but if you're gonna be adding spoilers to your introduction, then add it to the end of the book, because then I can reflect on what you're saying after I've read the book and learned all the details for myself. I really don't mind introductions that are spoilery for nonfiction books, because I like to learn a little more about the history of the author, a little more history about the situation, which usually introductions for nonfiction books include. And so that I don't mind, because like I said, usually you already know what the end result is when it comes to nonfiction books. Maybe not so much for memoirs, but even then I don't feel like I mind it too much. Nonfiction is a completely different situation for me. But yeah, I don't like that. I don't like when the introductions are really spoilery, especially classics. They do it a lot for classics because people are like, oh, I love this book, it touched my life. Let me tell you why it touched my life. And it goes on and on and on about all the reasons why this book was so influential for them. Let me tell you everything that happens in this book before you even get a chance to read the book. That is annoying. Question number 5. Name a time somebody spoiled a novel for you. Mom just spoiled a book for me recently, actually, and she didn't even realize she did it. And I didn't say anything because it kind of registered with me, and I was like, huh. And then when I read the book, I was like, yep, she gave that away. When I was reading Sword of Sorcery, the comic bind-up that was Volume 1, Amethyst, Mom told me something about one of the familial relationships in this that you don't know about going into this, and you certainly don't know about it until you get further along in the story, and it is important to know. So I was like, that was definitely a spoiler. I was trying to remember what book it was, and I was like, do you remember that part where you spoiled it for me? And she's like, I try not to spoil things for you. Sure enough, she forgot completely, or she didn't even realize that she had spoiled it for me, so that's okay. It wasn't my favorite comic bind-up anyways, so I don't feel too disappointed. Question number 6. Have you ever spoiled a novel for somebody else? Probably. I am really very cautious. I don't like to give spoilers. I really try hard not to. I mean, I know I have some videos that have spoilers, but I usually try to indicate at some point in that video when spoilers will occur, so that people aren't disappointed when they actually do read the book and feel like I've given things away. I can say that there may be situations where I've given a spoiler away and not realized it, or depending on what people's version of a spoiler is, I've given things away that to me didn't feel like a spoiler, but might have felt like a spoiler to them. So yes, probably, No, I don't know. I try not to. I'm definitely the kind of person who won't give spoilers for people who want spoilers. Like my friends and my mom and some of the other people I know don't care about spoilers. So you can tell them about the ending of a book. They won't be disappointed whatsoever. And they're always asking me to say, what happened in the book? What happened in the book? Or what happened in the TV show? Or what have you? And I'll be like, you got to watch it yourself. You got to read it yourself. I'm not going to tell you. I won't tell you anything. And it usually drives them nuts. I won't give away spoilers, not intentionally. If spoilers ruin novels, are there some authors or genres that you can't reread? That's a weird question. That feels weird. Okay, no, because if I give it time, I will probably forget everything about the book. And I can go back and read it, and it's like brand new. No, it's not that bad, but I typically, even if I already know the twists, say like a thriller or mystery, if I've given the book enough time between reading it, it's almost like coming back to an old friend, and I don't mind already knowing the twist. At that point, like, I'm reading it for a different purpose. The first time I read it, it was to be surprised and shocked, and I learned this twist, and I'm like, whoa, mind blown. And then the second time I read it, it's more nostalgic. I'm reading it at that point to revisit this excitement and this old friend. And so I'm not necessarily looking for the same thing from that book, if that makes sense. So it doesn't disappoint me because I've changed my perspective of it. And since I've changed my perspective, it doesn't bother me. Same with the authors. I like Riley Sager, and I know that a lot of his twists and turns tend to take on some of the same qualities. They may not be the exact same twists and turns, but you can sort of anticipate the types of twists and turns he's gonna give you, and I still like it. And I think that's true for like Stephen King. You can expect certain things from his books, and I still enjoy reading Stephen King novels. I think that's true for most authors. I mean, you get to a point where you can read a book and be like, this is very definitively this author. And maybe that's not true for all authors. I'm sure that's not true for all authors, but I find that they have a specific voice, and when you start reading some of their books tend to carry that voice through. I'm sure there's exceptions. So let me know in the comment section down below if you've read books by authors who each and every book seems so completely different that you're like, oh, I can't tell who this is written by, even though you know who it's written by. Question number 8. When reviewing, are you spoiler free? Does this limit your ability to discuss? So I am mostly spoiler free. I'm trying to get better about adding videos that do have spoilers as an option towards the end, because I know that there are specific books especially that I want to talk about the things that really were impactful or bothered me, or I have really strong feelings about that were spoiler-ish. For an example, I did a review on The Painted Drum, and that one I didn't feel like I really needed to go into any spoilers. I didn't think it was necessary for the review, for my review to be effective. Strange a Dreamer, the reason I put out that book review was because I wanted to talk about the issues that I had during the sections that are spoilery in that book. That review is fairly minimal, but the part where I talk about spoilers is much larger because that was the intention behind that review. Whereas Painted Drum was the opposite. It was more about like, let me tell you what the synopsis of this and how much I enjoyed it. Finally, shoutouts. Tell us about 5 channels you enjoy and tag them. So I tried to make sure I tagged people that Bethanne or some of the other people that are doing this may not tag or haven't tagged. So I'm going to tag first Katja Weinert. Love her channel. She has such a soothing demeanor, and I feel like she has some of the most superb reviews that I have seen. I just absolutely love her channel. So I just realized that I didn't actually say anything as to why Katja's book reviews are superb. They're superb because she takes the time to really give a great description that is spoiler free. She does have some spoilers in some of her reviews, but she always makes sure she indicates that. And she's very thoughtful. You can tell she really cares about giving a good review. And that comes through in her reviews. There's a lot of love in what she's doing. I don't know, there's something special about Katja's reviews. Go check them out. Maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. The second person I want to tag is Antonisha from Mrs. Moody Reader. She does have a new TBR game, which I do love TBR games, and she has really in-depth reviews. Also, I really like the diversity of her reading. I feel like she reads quite a few different genres, even though she certainly has favorites. I recognize that a lot of the books she's reading tend to be a lot of books that I either want to read or have read. But reading taste-wise, I feel like Antonisha and I match quite a bit. And next, I'd like to tag Martine from Just Martine. I love Martine's channel. I have gotten so many great ideas from her, and I do plan on trying them. Even like little life ideas, like she's going to school for psychology, so she's trying different things. And one of the things recently was just, she's spent a week doing 5 minutes of doing nothing every day. And I was like, yeah, I need to do that, because lately my brain has been on information overload where I can't even sit still for 10, 15 minutes without thinking of the 20 different things I should be doing or need to be doing. And so the idea of taking that time and just focusing on nothing is I think would be a good way to calm my mind. Just too many things going on up here. So she likes to add lifestyle content as well as book content. And I like the suggestions she has for books, because she does also read a very diverse set of books. And then she just has some fun challenges that she does, like the dollar store challenge. I do plan on doing at some point, because she just goes to the Dollar Tree and like picks up 3 to 5 books and then reads those $3 to $5 worth of books and kind of rates them based off that. I just love her ideas. So if you've not had a chance to check out Martine's channel, she is a wonderful person and I really like her channel. Next, I'm shouting out to Kim from Expedition Through Pages. And I'm really excited about Kim's channel, because I found her because she has a TBR game. So I was really excited about checking out her TBR game, and I love it. And I like that she does rolls for her subscribers as well. So I think that's really cool. I also just like the books she reads. I'm all really into the diversity of her reading as well, kind of like Antonisha's. She reads a lot of nonfiction, which I appreciate, as I like nonfiction, obviously. She's just so pleasant to watch. I like her personality. And one thing that's really exciting that she's doing is this book club called the X Book Club. I will write it here. It's this really interesting concept that I'm planning on taking part in. So I want to start reading the books that they read. And luckily they read them every like 2 to 3 months. So it's not too overwhelming. And I think it'll be a lot easier if she explains her book club to you. So I will link the video for her book club up in the cards as well in the description box below. And those 2 books that I'll be reading for her book club will be in my April TBR. Finally, I want to tag Jackie from Jackie Reads and Writes. She's very new to me. I just started watching her channel. I haven't got to get into enough of her videos to give you a full idea of what kind of book she reads, but I really like her TBR game, and I like the reviews she gives of books. She has a very uplifting personality. She's going to school, so she's definitely adding some interesting books that I was like, huh. One of them is the very first novel, I think, what was it called? Patricia, and it's considered like one of the worst novels of all time. So I'm curious to see what she thinks of that one. She seems to have a lot of variety. You'll find that I tend to like a lot of booktubers that add a lot of variety to their TBRs, because I want to hear about all different types of books. And so, I mean, I certainly have booktubers that I watch that are very specific in their tastes, but I do appreciate a diverse TBR. So those are the booktubers that I'm tagging for this video, and if you've not had a chance, please do check them out. All the information will be down in the description box below. And let me know in the comment section what you think about spoilers. Do you love spoilers? Do you hate spoilers? I'd be curious. And if you've done this tag, please link me a copy of your video down below, because I would be interested in hearing what your answers were to this, because spoilers are they're pretty subjective. If you like this video, click the like button and subscribe. Stop! And subscribe if you'd like to see more tag videos, because I do have at least one more coming up. And there's one that I really want to do that I'm going to try and get to. So subscribe for more content. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Say goodbye, Cease.